music here so you can hear my, I wouldn't call it a lovely voice, but it is a voice. Okay, well, welcome back. It's been a couple of days. Actually, I had been planning on doing this particular talk for several days and ran into technical problems with the solution I was using for podcasting, Manycam, which I had been pretty happy with until it started stuttering on the audio and video, and getting so bad that basically my recordings were unusable after several days of farting around with everything I could think of and trying to get a hold of their support, which is non-existent at this point. I got a message saying that they're not accepting email from outside, other than certain people. So support is impossible to get anymore, I guess, on that solution. Anyway, I'm very unhappy with Manycam, so I switched over to Cyberlink UCam, which is what I'm using right now, and we'll see how it goes. If this looks pretty good, I'll probably invest in a license and have access to the advanced features for more than the next month, but I'm going to give it a good workout before I put any more money down on a solution. Okay, so where are we going today? Let's start off, as we often do, with looking at the artwork. So let's see if we can take me out of the picture here. Actually, I'm not sure I can do that. No, I can put the presentation in. Okay, well, so let's talk about this picture behind me. No, that doesn't do it either. Okay, well, you can see there's a mountain and there's some people on a path on this mountain. What did I give it for the prompt there? To be honest, it didn't do a very good job of giving me what I wanted, but just to share that with you, like I like to do, for those of you who enjoy exploring my AI art fantasies. I asked it to show me, I asked it to show me the many versions of a hopeful NPC soul evolving into a god. And that's what it gave me. And that relates to the topic for the day. Let's see, we're going to call this one, where'd that come from? Oops, hang on, I gotta go load up. I thought I had that loaded already. Load up my notes. Okay, we're going to call this Soul Evolution in the Simulation Multiverse. And I've got a new slide that I put together that we're going to be talking through this with. So let me, without further ado, let's put that slide up. And I'm not going to show myself with it so I don't block off stuff. Okay, so I've been getting a lot of questions lately on Quora, other places that I post. Folks wanting to know how this whole game works from, say, beginning to end. And so I put together this this little helpful slide that hopefully will illustrate that and help you understand how it works. Okay, so as we've been talking about, all souls begin the game, as it will, as an NPC, a non-player character in the simulation multiverse. This is basically a unit of quantum consciousness that is spun up to fill a role that no more conscious player wants to take. Okay, so if a child is born to unwed mother in, say the poorest country in Africa, there's a good chance that that child, their life plan, what they're going to do in their life, the default plan of what their life is going to look like, is not going to be all that interesting. And so that particular birth might not attract a higher level soul. If that's the case, then a non-player character will be assigned. This is a new soul that basically has only the programming of that character. So that character's programming will come from DNA for the NPC. It will be reacting in the programming of its cultural background, its DNA background, and what it learns from its parents. Okay, and its responses will be largely programmatic. And in fact, a non-player character could go through an entire life basically just doing what they were programmed to do. And this is what leads some people to think, oh, we have no free will. In fact, you can choose not to have free will. It's an option. You have to deliberately exercise it by making choices that are different than the default choices that just, like the first thing that comes to your mind. And in fact, there are many spiritual cults that advocate doing just that. These cults that say, oh, you should live in the moment. Okay, this is basically advocating not having any free will, just doing the first thing that comes to your mind. That spontaneity can be very useful in some cases. If you're an actor on stage and you're conditioned to play a role, you don't have time to think every action out. You've got to basically just go on intuition, the programming that you've taken in by working on that role. Or if you're in the military or something like that, and you've got to act quickly. It may apply in situations like I would guess the barroom meat market. You've got to be quick on your feet. You've got to be in the moment to be able to come up with just the right line to hook the person that you're trying to take home for the evening or whatever. Okay, so there is a place for that, but this is, in my humble opinion, not a very advanced approach to spirituality. It's basically an NPC approach, and it's an irresponsible approach that says, I'm just going to do what comes to mind, and then I don't feel responsible for it because my actions are not coming from me, they're coming from somewhere else. And so I wouldn't advocate that, but it is a choice. Okay, so this new NPC soul goes through a life and may not make any changes, may not do anything unique, may just follow the rules all through life. In that case, at the end of their life, their afterlife experience is going to be an NPC afterlife, non-player character afterlife experience, which is going to depend upon what their belief system they were raised in was. So if they were raised within a family and cultural environment that was atheist, they may go to the atheist afterlife, atheist NPC afterlife, which will be basically in its most basic form is just, okay, I died and now I'm in another body. I was reborn. There's no sort of afterlife experience because there's no belief there to drive it. Okay, and there there that kind of an experience for the afterlife that suits hardcore atheists. There are afterlife experiences for the very dogmatic religionist. So they will, have the expected experience. Oh, I died, I got to see heaven maybe, or got to meet, my Jesus or whatever, and said, no, you need to go back and do this new role. And that will be maybe their first experience of, oh, wow. Or they may not get any instruction. They'll just be sent back to another Christian family without having any choices or really any experience in the afterlife. That is a possibility. And, you could go through an infinite number of incarnations and never wake up from this non-player character level. That's a choice. However, if you've had any progress and it looks like you deserve it, you will get a chance to have an awakened soul experience where, okay, they give you a little bit of an afterlife. They say, okay, we know you don't believe as a Christian in reincarnation, but actually we're going to send you back for another chance to play this game. And they may, this may be presented like the heaven of that wonderful movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where you've got your angel second class Clarence, and this hierarchy of almost a corporate afterlife, telling you, oh, okay, helping souls develop both on earth and in the heavens. So they may send you back, and it may be back to the same life, which is how that movie went. He got to see the same life as if he'd never existed, which is a possibility, and then was luckily able to go back and live his life as it would continue, dealing with the issues that came up and finding that, oh, even though it looked like the end of the world, it really wasn't the end of the world, because you've got a bunch of friends and family that are, when the chips are down, they're going to be there for you. Okay, so this is the next level of a soul. Beyond NPC level, you're awakening. You have some awareness of your sinful nature and your passionate nature, both the good and bad passions that you have. And you start forming a permanent personality at this point that is independent of the character that you're playing. Now, this makes life actually more difficult for many awakening souls than it would be to live life as an NPC. And of course, we all actually start again as an NPC because of reincarnation amnesia. So when you're born, except for some number of children who have past life memories and have like a hint of their soul's previous training, if you will, you'll have reincarnation amnesia, and you'll have to wake up again in this new life. If you've had previous experience, that waking up will be more likely to draw you into making different decisions than the default ones for that character. Okay, which will again accelerate your training. The more individual choices you make that aren't on the standard divine path, whatever, for that character, the more individual training you'll get, or the more specialized training associated with the afterlife that you're currently attending, whether it's a Christian afterlife, heaven or hell, Muslim afterlife. I guess they have heavens and hells too. So do Buddhists, so do Hindus. Just different afterlife experiences. There may be non-denominational afterlife experiences where it's just, we're helping you get better, we're healing you, there's no real sense of divinity there or a particular God. That's a real popular one these days with a lot of the New Age religions that have been cropping up. And again, that's a choice. So the awakening soul will be going to these training afterlives, back and forth, learning, working on their shortcomings, their negative addictions, if you will, which can, you can be addicted to almost anything, and to the extent that it limits what you can do in other areas of a rounded life, that is sort of a bad addiction. Okay, so think of a scientist like what's a good example? Well, it's hard to find a good example because the scientists that are very addicted to their work tend to stay in the lab, tend to not take many grad students, tend to publish very obscure papers, but be valued because they're doing good work. So you don't hear a lot about them, but they sort of live life in this little narrow box where they don't tend to have very good family life. Actually, Einstein is a pretty good example. He, as a man, as opposed to being a scientist, he had a lot of shortcomings. He was not faithful to his wife. He didn't treat his family well, especially his wife, and could be, kind of a bully and a baby at times, and was a bit of a prima donna once he gained fame. So these are examples of addictive tendencies that would have indicated that even though Einstein may have been near a God level of consciousness in his specialty of science, he had a lot to learn, and probably is going back and doing some training lives now. So looking forward then, as you get past this sort of training level, you get more specialized on, this is what I really want to focus on, whether it's science or art, administration, religion, whatever. And that's what I call a missioned soul. You have an idea what you want to be when you, quote, grow up. And at that point, you tend to attend specialized afterlives. So this would not be Christian or Muslim or Hindu or whatever. It might have a flavor of that, but it will be specialized towards art or science or administration, and the highest levels of these will be non-denominational, or will consider all religions, because every religion has sort of its own artistic style, has its own philosophy of science, if you will, its own philosophy of administration. And of course, each religion has its own approach to religion, its idea of who the gods are and what the hierarchy is, what their names are, and so forth. So these are heavens and hells that are sort of more chosen based upon passions. And again, like in the Einstein example, you could be making progress in this specialized area and then have an incarnation where, like Einstein, you make a lot of progress in your specialty, but you actually expose some weaknesses that might force you to go back and do some remedial training in one of these afterlives, if you want to round yourself out and be graduating to a good God, if you will. And so basically, between these paths, eventually you might get to the point, that's not a foregone conclusion, but if you keep working on your consciousness, keep honing your skills, your passions, and learning how to rein in your darker passions, you don't have to give them up. You don't have to kill your ego. You can try to do that, but that's deluding yourself. Pretending you don't have these passions is not necessarily a good thing. That bottles up those passions inside. And bottled passion tends to come out at the worst moments. So again, like going back to our Einstein example, Einstein was a really fun guy to be around and life of the party kind of guy until he wasn't. and he would lash out, not in public so much, but in private he would lash out and punish his family, his closest colleagues, his graduate students, and so forth. And this is a fairly common way of that people who try to sublimate their darker passions often will express them in hurting the people that they actually love the most. So, but at any rate, at some point you may graduate to a God level of consciousness. And as I was talking about, you can kind of see this. If this is consciousness level 0, awakening sort of takes you through physical issues, physical dimension issues that you might encounter, addictions and so forth, shortcomings, strengths and weaknesses. This mission soul level is more spiritual. So this you can see you could envision this as the first 4 levels of consciousness, correspond to the 4 dimensions of physical reality. You could see the mission soul level as dealing more with the spiritual levels of consciousness, which is the next 4 dimensions of spiritual reality, where what you're doing in the physical universe is more driven by what's going on in the afterlife. Whereas, when you're an awakening soul, what's going on in the physical universe is far more driven by what's happening in that incarnation than what you learned in the afterlife. That's the reason for reincarnation amnesia, so that when you incarnate, you will actually see a different point of view and get to live that point of view and compare and contrast it in the afterlife with, okay, I see, in this situation, it was easy to ignore this passion, but in another situation, maybe I was born to a rich family, it was easy to get in trouble with an addiction to, I don't know, gambling, sex, you name it. Okay, so, so this is 4 levels here, 4 levels there, and the God levels of consciousness are another 4 levels. That gets you your full 12-dimensional Merkaba, which we talk about in other presentations. So once you get to the God level, then you have access to your own creative universe. And your creative universe may be of any of these other types, including it could be a physical universe. There are parallel universes, alternate history universes that can be popular. They are usually popular because they're sort of like a vacation incarnation. And I talk about this before. Basically, when you're in one of these afterlives where you're consciously making decisions about where to incarnate, especially when you get to these specialized afterlives, where you're focused on a particular passion, you may just want to take a vacation life where you're not really going to be trying to learn anything new, although you will be. Incidentally, sometimes you learn the most from these vacation incarnations, because you'll pick something that sounds like, oh, that's going to be fun. I'm going to go spend a life in Tolkien land, or in the Star Wars universe. And you might think it's just going to be all fun, swashbuckling, and getting to live your favorite movie, when it turns out that it's actually more serious. You have real relationships, real things happening there that affect you in ways that you hadn't planned on. At any rate, so your creative universe could be one of these specialized ones in the arts, science, administration, religion. It could be a training one, which is more the traditional idea of how people think of a heaven or a hell. The heavens would be for the souls that need just a little bit of help to become more aware of their shortcomings and better able to deal with them. the hells would be for serious addictions that kind of need to have bashed out of you to show, basically how I described hell universes in that milieu as being kind of like a 12-step program for a certain addiction. And actually that 12-step program idea is a very good example of the as above, so below, where we have learned that this 12-step approach is a very effective way of dealing with addictions. And actually the best teacher to help you overcome an addiction is somebody who has had the same addiction, maybe even worse, and has overcome it. They understand what you're going through. They're able to help in a way that is more relatable than someone who's never had that addiction. And that's the way hells work now. Not necessarily how you were taught or how they used to work. Okay, so, there are probably still some hells that are just, okay, you were bad, you're going to get punished. But that's far less helpful than, okay, you're going to get some punishing training. That's how hells really work, not just in general doling out punishment in concert with you're deserving of punishment. Not to say it doesn't happen, but again, the heavens have evolved. This is one of the lessons that really needs to be beaten into dogmatic religionists, is that it wasn't perfect in 7 days. It wasn't perfect in 6 days. God didn't go off to the reservation, go off to the celestial golf course on day 7. God was personally testing the system by incarnating, by becoming an NPC soul, an awakening, maybe many times. This is another thing that I need to mention here, is that at some point in your journey, you may make the choice to say, I want to get off this wheel. I don't want to reincarnate anymore. That is a choice. It's not enlightenment like they're telling you. It is throwing in the towel. What you are doing when you say, I don't want to reincarnate anymore, unless you're taking up permanent residence in one of these heavens, which is possible. If you take up permanent residence in your own creative universe and basically stop interacting with the rest of the multiverse, that's a choice too when you become a god, but it's kind of creating your own little padded cell where you can play with your toy soldiers and your dollies, NPCs all, and make them do whatever you want and play games with them, but it's not going to be as fun, I wouldn't think, as interacting with more conscious souls who have the opportunity to exercise free will. Okay, so you can back up and start over again. It's a choice. It's not an enlightened choice. It's a cop-out. And this is one of the reasons, again, why I tend to talk very lowly, very poorly of the typical Eastern guru preaching this, we're all one, you need to get off the wheel of karma, creation is cyclical. This is all bullshit, in my humble opinion. Bullshit that is designed to appeal to weak and impressionable people and pull them into a cult. And basically, I have yet to see a guru that doesn't have this idea of forming a cult around their particular worship, which I think is a bad thing. A spiritual teacher, in my humble opinion, should be focused on giving others the tools they need to become their own teacher and pass it on to others. Pay it forward, as it will. Now, granted, you have to make a living and so forth, so it's understandable that you may want to make a business of spiritual teaching, but if it becomes a business that serves the business, not spirituality, that's when you kind of gone over to the dark side, in my humble opinion. Okay, what else did I want to cover today? That was a fairly short one, but I think I hit all the points I wanted to. So I'm gonna switch back and let you see me for a while, so I'll have a good thumbnail with me instead of my slide. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them. Like, share, subscribe, as the old saw goes, and interact in any way you want. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm living on retirement funds, Social Security, and as long as that holds out, I'm not going to get on the bandwagon and trying to make this a business. Although if somebody wanted to join Team Trump and make it more of a business, as long as you don't try to dictate what I say or do on my channel, I would be more than happy to explore partnering with somebody who would like to do more of the business side of things, because although I can do it, I have done it, I don't really have an interest in doing that anymore after a couple of years of being the leader of a theater, community theater in Shanghai. I just don't want to have that kind of responsibility again. At any rate, till next time, this is the Honest Hour with Rob Trump, and happy karma.